You know him as the $6 million man, the tough guy who could run faster than a speeding car and lift impossible weights with his bionic arm. For millions of people around the world, Lee Majors was more than just an actor on their television screens. He was a hero, a symbol of strength, and someone who made us believe that anything was possible. But behind that $1 million smile and those incredible stunts, there's a story that most people don't know. A story filled with loss, heartbreak, and struggles that would break most people. Today, we're going to talk about the real Lee Majors, and trust me, what this man has been through will absolutely break your heart. Before we dive into his story, let me ask you something. Have you ever lost someone you loved? Have you ever felt like the world was crashing down around you, and you didn't know how to pick up the pieces? Well, imagine going through that kind of pain not just once, but over and over again, starting from when you were just a baby. That's exactly what happened to Lee Majors, and his journey from tragedy to stardom is something that will leave you speechless. Lee Majors wasn't always the strong, confident man we saw on television. In fact, his real name isn't even Lee Majors. He was born Harvey Lee Urey on April 23, 1939, in a small town called Wyandotte, Michigan. And right from the very beginning, life had something cruel planned for little Harvey. When he was just a baby, barely old enough to remember his parents' faces, something terrible happened that would change his life forever. His father was killed in a horrible work accident. Can you imagine that? A little boy who would never get to know his dad, never get to play catch with him, never get to hear him say, "I love you, son." But the tragedy didn't stop there. As if losing his father wasn't enough, his mother was also killed in a car accident before he even turned 2 years old. Think about that for a moment. Before his second birthday, this little boy had lost both of his parents. He was left completely alone in this world, without the two people who were supposed to love him and protect him forever. Most of us can't even imagine what that kind of loss feels like, especially at such a young age when you need your parents the most. After losing both his mom and dad, little Harvey was sent to live with his uncle and aunt in Middlesboro, Kentucky. They adopted him and gave him their last name, Urey. Now, his aunt and uncle tried their best to give him a good life, and has always been grateful for that. But no matter how much love they gave him, there was always this empty space in his heart where his real parents should have been. Growing up, he always felt different from other kids. While his friends talk about their moms and dads, he had to carry this heavy weight of knowing he would never have those memories. School became his escape. Harvey threw himself into sports, especially football. He was really good at it too. Football gave him something to focus on, a way to channel all that pain and anger and sadness into something positive. He was so talented that he earned a football scholarship to Indiana University. Finally, things were looking up for him. He was going to go to college, play the sport he loved, and maybe make something of himself. But once again, fate had other plans. During his college years, Harvey suffered a terrible back injury while playing football. Just like that, his dreams of becoming a professional football player were crushed. The one thing he was really good at, the one thing that made him feel special, was taken away from him. Can you imagine working so hard for something, being so close to achieving your dreams, and then having it all ripped away in a single moment? That's what happened to him. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of giving up, instead of letting the setback destroy him, Harvey decided to try something completely different. He switched his major to theater and started acting. Now, nobody expected much from this football player turned actor. But there was something about him, something special that people noticed. He had this natural charm, this presence that you just couldn't ignore. After college, he moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting, and that's when Harvey Lee Urey became Lee Majors. The road to success wasn't easy, though. Like most actors starting out in Hollywood, he struggled. He went to audition after audition, hearing no more times than he could count. He took small roles here and there, barely making enough money to pay his rent. There were times when he probably wondered if he'd made a huge mistake, if he should have just given up on his dreams and found a regular job. But he kept pushing, kept believing that someday his big break would come. And then it did. In 1965, Lee landed a role in a Western television series called The Big Valley. He played Heath Barkley, and suddenly, people started to notice him. He was handsome, talented, and had this rugged charm that audiences loved. The show was a hit, and Lee Majors was finally becoming a star. After years of struggle and rejection, after all the pain and loss he'd experienced in his life, things were finally working out. But success in Hollywood came with its own set of challenges. In 1973, Lee got the role that would make him a legend. He was cast as Colonel Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man. The show was about an astronaut who's severely injured in a crash and gets rebuilt with bionic implants that give him superhuman strength and abilities. The show became a massive hit, one of the most popular shows on television. Kids everywhere wanted to be like the $6 Million Man. Lee Majors was now a household name, a genuine superstar. At the height of his fame, Lee seemed to have it all. He was rich, famous, and admired by millions. In 1976, he married Farrah Fawcett, who was also becoming a huge star thanks to Charlie's Angels. They were Hollywood's golden couple, the kind of pair that everyone wanted to be like. Beautiful, successful, and seemingly perfect together. Their pictures were on magazine covers everywhere. They were living the dream that so many people wish they could have. But as we all know, things aren't always what they seem, especially in Hollywood. Behind closed doors, Lee and Farrah's marriage was falling apart. Both of them were incredibly busy with their careers, working long hours on their respective shows. They barely had time for each other. The pressure of fame, the constant attention from the media, and the demanding schedules put a huge strain on their relationship. In 1982, after 6 years of marriage, they divorced. It was a painful split that played out in the public eye, with everyone watching and judging. Losing Farrah was hard on Lee. He truly loved her, and even though the marriage didn't work out, it hurt to lose someone he cared about so deeply. But life went on. He continued acting, taking on different roles and projects. He got married again, trying to find the happiness and companionship that everyone needs. But his second marriage also ended in divorce. And then his third marriage ended the same way. Can you imagine the pain of opening your heart to someone, trying to build a life together, only to watch it fall apart again and again? As the years went by, Hollywood started to change. The roles that once came so easily started drying up. Younger actors were coming in, and Lee found himself competing for parts that he once would have gotten without even trying. The phone that used to ring constantly with offers started ringing less and less. This is something that happens to many actors as they get older, but it doesn't make it any less painful. Going from being one of the biggest stars in the world to struggling to find work is a hard pill to swallow. But Lee kept working. He took roles in smaller productions, made guest appearances on various shows, and did whatever he could to stay in the game. He wasn't the type to just give up and fade away. Remember, this was the same person who lost both parents as a baby, who overcame a career-ending injury, who fought his way to stardom against all odds. He was a fighter, and he wasn't going to stop fighting now. In 2002, Lee married for the fourth time. Her name was Faith Cross, and she was much younger than him. Many people were skeptical about the relationship, wondering if it would last or if it was just another Hollywood romance destined to fail. But something was different this time. Faith and Lee connected on a deeper level. She understood him in a way that others hadn't. She saw past a famous actor and loved the real man underneath. And amazingly, they are still together today, more than 20 years later. Finding Faith gave Lee something he'd been searching for his whole life, a sense of stability and real love. But even with this happiness, the pain of his past never completely went away. In 2009, Lee had to face another devastating loss. Farrah Fawcett, his first wife and the woman he once loved more than anything, lost her battle with cancer. Even though they had been divorced for decades, Lee was heartbroken. Farrah had been such an important part of his life, and watching her suffer and eventually pass away brought back all those feelings of loss that he'd carried since childhood. As Lee entered his 80s, he started to slow down. His body, which had once been so strong and capable, wasn't what it used to be. The years of doing his own stunts, the old football injury, and just the natural process of aging caught up with him. There were health scares and challenges that come with getting older. For someone who had been so physical, so active throughout his life, this was another kind of loss. The man who once played a bionic superhero now struggled with the simple reality of growing old. Today, at 86 years old, Lee Majors is still with us, still married to Faith, and still occasionally taking on small acting roles. But his story is one that makes you think about the price of fame and the resilience of the human spirit. Here's a man who lost everything before he even had a chance to experience life. A man who climbed to the top of Hollywood only to watch it all slip away. A man who experienced heartbreak after heartbreak in his personal life. Yet somehow, he kept going. He never gave up, never stopped trying, never let the tragedies define him completely. When you look at old episodes of The $6 Million Man now, it hits differently. You're not just watching an actor playing a character. You're watching someone who understands what it means to be broken and to rebuild yourself. Steve Austin, the character Lee played, was literally rebuilt after a devastating accident. In a way, that was Lee's story too. He was broken by tragedy as a child, broken by injuries, broken by failed marriages, broken by the changing tides of Hollywood. But each time, he found a way to rebuild, to keep moving forward, to survive. The tragedy of Lee Majors isn't just about the awful things that happened to him. It's about the cost of survival, the weight of carrying so much loss, and the loneliness that comes with outliving so many chapters of your life. It's about being remembered as a symbol of strength when inside you felt weak and vulnerable so many times. It's about having everything and nothing all at once. It's about the little boy who lost his parents and spent his whole life trying to fill that emptiness, searching for family and belonging in a world that can be incredibly cruel. But here's the thing about Lee Majors' story that's also incredibly inspiring. Despite everything, despite all the reasons he had to become bitter or angry or to just give up, he didn't. He kept showing up. He kept trying. He found love again with faith. He still smiles when he talks about his career. He's grateful for the opportunities he had and the fans who still remember him. That takes a special kind of strength, a kind that doesn't come from bionic implants or special effects. It comes from somewhere deep inside, from a will to keep living even when life keeps knocking you down. Lee Majors' journey reminds us that everyone we meet is fighting battles we know nothing about. That handsome actor on your television screen, that successful person you admire from afar, they might be carrying pain that would crush most people. It reminds us to be kind, to be understanding, and to never judge someone's life by what we see on the surface. It also reminds us that survival isn't always about being the strongest or the fastest or the most talented. Sometimes, it's just about waking up every day and deciding to keep going, even when everything in you wants to quit. As Lee Majors enters what might be the final chapter of his life, his legacy is complicated. Yes, he'll be remembered as a $6 million man, as a television icon who entertained millions. But for those who know his real story, he'll be remembered as something even more impressive, a survivor. Someone who faced unimaginable tragedy and still found reasons to smile, to love, to work, to live. That's the real superpower, not the bionic legs or the superhuman strength. It's the human strength to endure, to heal, and to keep hoping even when hope seems impossible. So the next time you see a rerun of The $6 Million Man, remember the real man behind the character. Remember little Harvey, who lost everything before his life even began. Remember the football player whose dreams were shattered. Remember the struggling actor who refused to give up. Remember the heartbroken husband who kept trying to find love. Remember the aging star who faced his own mortality with grace. That's the real story of Lee Majors, and it's far more compelling than any script Hollywood could ever write. His story is heartbreaking. Yes, it's filled with loss and pain that most of us will hopefully never have to experience. But it's also a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It proves that you can lose everything and still find reasons to keep going. That you can face tragedy after tragedy and still choose hope. That you can be broken down to nothing and still rebuild yourself into something amazing. Lee Majors is more than just a television star. He's a reminder that we're all capable of surviving so much more than we think we can. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a story about resilience and survival. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we're going to keep bringing you stories about the real people behind the fame, the struggles behind the success, and the truth behind the glamour. Lee Majors deserved to have his real story told. And by watching and sharing, you're helping make sure his legacy is about more than just a television show. It's about the triumph of the human spirit over impossible odds. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.